Michael, firstly to kick off, I just mentioned that you guys are probably known in the SME market for financing small businesses. And I think one of the big challenges that came up now was cash flow. And I know we always preach and say, like, you need to have 6 months of cash available for overhead. But I think when this hit and lockdown hit, no one was really expecting it. Do you think there were some lessons learned during this that entrepreneurs can apply going forward?
Hi, Marnus. First of all, it's great to be chatting and nice to see you. Look, I think there are lessons, and I think that it's still early days, and some of the lessons we're going to have to kind of develop over time. You know, at the end of the day, an entrepreneur takes on risk. You know, they say that the safest place for a ship is in the harbor, but that's not what a ship was meant for. A ship is meant to go out into the oceans. You know, it's all good and well to say that an entrepreneur must be sitting with lots of cash, but the whole idea behind going into a business is to generate a return on your money, you know, way in excess of the return you're going to get at the bank. You know, you don't want to be in a position where you're sitting with too much cash. And then this therefore brings into question the balance between eating well and sleeping well. You know, the more cash you've got in the bank, 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, the easier it is for you to sleep at night. But you are therefore not using that cash to generate revenue, to generate growth in your business, to invest in stock or people or IP, whatever might be required. I think what's most important is that entrepreneurs have an approach to risk management. But I think every business has to think about, what are my top risks? How am I going to manage risk? Business isn't about avoiding risk, but it's about managing that risk. And I think that at the end of the day, you know, it's very difficult to know what are the unforeseen risks, what are the black swan events. This has been a huge black swan event. And therefore, having a sufficient amount of liquidity is important to withstand certain risks. And that will depend on your debt profile, it will depend on your working capital cycle, and therefore to kind of apply a blanket rule across industries and different types of businesses is very difficult. But in managing risk, one of the key risks of a business is liquidity risk, and your liquidity risk becomes a major issue in the face of lockdown and kind of no turnover for a period or far reduced turnover for a period. And therefore, sitting with some liquidity, really cash, is important. But as I say, sitting with too much cash is, you know, that's not really how an entrepreneur lives. It would be nice, but we know that entrepreneurs often need a lot of debt to grow their businesses. And having debt and sitting with cash isn't necessarily in contradiction with each other, because you can have longer term debt and sit with shorter term cash. But getting that right balance, it's quite difficult to say per entrepreneur. And I sympathize with every entrepreneur trying to navigate these stormy waters.
And Michael, I think you're 100% right. Like, it's easy to come in hindsight and say, oh, you should have had cash, you should have had a relationship with your bank, you should have had that. But you can't always do that. And I think where the wheels really came off for some businesses, and definitely big businesses as well, government, is really the leadership. When things are going south, the leaders that come out of that. And leading a company like Sasfin, is there any lessons that you've learned as a leader of bringing your team together? Anything that you can share with business owners?
I suppose my preferred approach in leading our business is a consultative approach, where we engage with one another, where we try and find the ideas sitting in the business, to listen to our people and to allow that to formulate into our strategy. But when you're dealing with a crisis, there isn't time to be consultative. What we did as a leadership team in the immediate aftermath was to move into a command and control type of leadership, quite old school leadership, to say that now's the time for action. There isn't a huge opportunity to listen to everyone and to get lots of different views, because we need to make sure by the time level 5 lockdown comes in, that our people can work from home, that we've got all the right things in place. During that time, what was critical was communication. I can't say it enough. To communicate, I've communicated more, especially in the early stages of lockdown. I communicated much more to our business than I would ordinarily do. And I think it's very important with remote working too, because people are anxious, they're not sure what tomorrow is going to bring, and therefore it's very important to communicate what's actually happening in the business and around us. But now, as we're moving towards a new kind of normal, and we're accepting the fact that the fourth industrial revolution is now, and the future of work is really the today of work, there's a lot of opportunities to learn and to pivot our business or to change our business. And I think in that time, to really understand that, we have to hear from lots of people and to learn from these different experiences and to try and take all of that data and to go back to that consultative approach. And I think in doing that, what I'm really saying is that leaders have to adapt. One style of leadership today isn't right for tomorrow, which might not be right for the next day. And I think being able to change and to adapt, I think, is very important.
I like that, and I definitely agree. I think over communication is almost key here. And I found so many people almost naively positive, just thought that this will blow over and they don't need to communicate with suppliers or customers or anything. And I definitely think that they are having the bad part of this. So I follow Ellie on Instagram, and I know that you're all about the deeper stuff in life. And I think something like the lockdown just amplified this a lot more. And I think in a time like this, purpose and values really came through. What was your experience or advice?
So Marinus, whether it's what you have a company of 1, 10 or 10,000 employees, a company doesn't run itself. It's really the people who will get you through, and it's the company culture, which includes purpose and values. They really are the heartbeat of an organization. So when we look at Howard Behar, he was the former president of Starbucks, and he talks about leading in hard times. He had the following to say, which is just incredible. Without the people who buy, who roast, who deliver, who prepare and serve the coffee, we wouldn't have Starbucks. It's his belief that it's the people in the best of times, but listen to this, especially in the worst of times, who will inspire you, who will sustain and grow your organization and get you through. People may say that these are extremely tough times and companies are falling apart and people are losing their jobs. And it's really not about people now. It's about numbers. It's about survival. Yeah. And I'm certainly not saying that one is at the expense of the other, but they work hand in hand. Even if you had all the financial resources at hand to ease your business, it's not going to make any difference if your culture isn't robust, if your people aren't committed and purposeful about where you're going. You can't actually retreat into success. You need to reach towards success. As a business, you need to actually start with the end in mind and work backwards, which means honoring the people who will take you there.
Ellie, my next question was exactly that. I wanted to ask you about marketing for SMEs and how they talk to these future customers, but you've pretty much answered that by using technology and telling your story.
Yeah, I'd love to share how I believe the impacts of COVID will have and has that on the way businesses will engage with their customers in the future, because I think it's pivoted 180 degrees in a very short space of time. We've heard many times during the last 2 to 3 months that this isn't a financial crisis, it's really a human crisis. And the only appropriate response to a human crisis is to be human. The world's no longer waiting for your product, they're waiting for you. So I think in the past, it was about being the best in the world. And now that has shifted dramatically. It's not about being the best in the world, but actually being the best for the world. It's about human brands. It's about leading with authenticity. It's no longer about how much you won, about how much you have, but what you gave and how much you cared. And I think those will be things that will create engagement points with clients in the future. We really can see that the playing fields have been leveled. You can't hide behind big budgets anymore. Fancy events and expensive gifting, you're doing this all from home. And it's not a call to your client regarding the next product sale, right? It's a call with no other motive behind it than, hello, how are you? How are you doing? And how are your family? It really is about making meaningful connections because people remember how you made them feel.
Michael, so you mentioned the payment holidays. I'm optimistic, and I think small business owners and entrepreneurs will pivot, will change, will adapt, and there's going to come great things from here. I agree with you. But I think there's also a huge problem. I think before COVID, lots of companies were struggling. Margins are low. Now we can't hike prices. It's so competitive out there, and I think we're kicking the can down the road. in your own experience and being part of the CEO or the CEO of the bank, what do you see in the SME space going forward in the next 12, 24 months? What do you think we can expect, and what do you think will happen?
The first thing is on this remote working and future of work and remote engagement. I think that it's such an important thing to understand. We've got more research. We've developed more data points on remote working in the last 3 months than probably in the history of mankind. And I think that from that, there's going to be a lot of learnings. I've spoken to quite a few of our lower to middle income earners in the last few weeks. And what I've noticed from them is that many of them are saving 2, 3, 4 hours of travel time a day at the moment. And they are probably saving somewhere in the region of between 10 and 20% of their net take-home salary on travel costs. And they're avoiding having to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to take 2 or 3 different pieces of public transport to get into the office. Now, that's one kind of experience. There's another experience of individuals who aren't married, let's say they don't have kids at home, they're stuck at home, they're very lonely, and they're dealing with other challenges, and they want that human connection again. How the salesperson feels about this versus how the data analyst feels about it is very different. The data analyst might be very happy at home. The salesperson might be missing much of the energy. So I think it's very exciting to see such a changing landscape and knowing that so many people will benefit from that. But at the same time, I am very concerned about many people. I think there are going to be many people who are going to be out of jobs, and there are going to be many businesses who are going to struggle. And I think not for 1 second should we underestimate the pain which people are currently going through and will be going through at this time. So it really is a time of extremes.
Ellie, and if you look into the crystal ball, what do you think can SMEs expect?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna turn the interviewee into the interviewer and ask you that question, Maurits. You know, with your bean counter business, your SME Africa business, you're very connected to the SME markets. I would love to hear from you as to what you're hearing on the ground for the next 12 to 24 months from SMEs.
Yeah, so I think what Michael also said earlier, I think it's so diverse, and there's different industries. Some are booming, some are really having a tough time. The good side is I think we're seeing a bigger recovery than what I think most expected. So if I just look at the SMEs we're dealing with right now and what they expected to get in June versus what they are actually getting, it's a lot better. Obviously, it's not hospitality, restaurants, those kind of businesses, but just general, even retail. But I think there's a tough time coming ahead. I really think so. I think it's been tough prior to COVID, and I can't see it changing. But I also believe in the power of entrepreneurship, and great minds will pivot. We will change. We will find new value, and I think business owners will be okay. I do feel a lot more sorry for workers out there, because I think business owners are cutting expenses. They're cutting workers. And I think business owners will survive, but whether you can just pick up another job at another company, I think that's going to be more challenging. Right, guys, so that's my view, Ellie. Also a bit of a balance between being very positive and also just, I think, seeing reality. Thank you so much for being part of our journey throughout this. I know that the business owners definitely got a lot of value, and it was interesting doing this video series with you guys because things are completely different now than what it was 6 weeks ago, and it really changed so quickly. So I saw that all the financing companies, even alternative financing companies, have completely shut doors, said we're not going to finance now. Some came out and said we're only doing companies with PPE equipment, but we're not going to do the rest. And I joined a webinar recently from Sasfin, and I saw that you guys said that you gave out the most loans in a month. What made you carry on giving funding to SMEs?
You know, look, obviously we have adopted a conservative approach to credits at this time. And it's very important in understanding as a credit provider or a lender, you know, what is the impact of this going to be on a business? Because you don't want to lend to a business that won't be able to pay you back. as a lender that's unsustainable. It's not good for anyone. That being said, we've got a long history with many of our clients, and we didn't want to now suffocate our clients from accessing finance, which they desperately needed at this time. And therefore, especially for clients who we've got a long history with, we adopted an approach which said, we want to find a way that we can work with this company as opposed to finding a way not to lend to the company. And that might mean we ask for additional security. It might mean that we have to do more work to understand the risks and opportunities within the company. And we recognize the important role that funding plays in an SME's life. And I think that this is it's a challenging credit environment, but as a bank and as a lender, we see it very important to be there when our clients need them.
But Michael, I don't want to punch you guys, but that's exactly why I like working with you, and I think you're really a champion for the SMEs, because these guys who are always saying we champion SMEs, and then exactly what you say now, like the moment something bad goes, you just close all the tabs. That's definitely not SME supporters. But I think that's what's making Sasfin such a great bank for SMEs, because you really try and understand and maneuver around that. So it's been a real pleasure working with you again on this.
Thank you, Marnus, and thank you for everything that you do for the SMEs.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this series.
Guys, thank you so much for your time, and thanks again for the series. I think it was super valuable.